Hooray for Friday! The first sick joke I ever heard was about a man who was looking past a high board fence into a mental institution. All he could see was the inmates diving off the high diving board. As each one dived off, he yelled, "Hooray for Friday!" "Why do they say hooray for Friday when they jump off the diving board?" the man asked his companion. "Well," the man answered, "Friday, they're going to put water in the pool." Everybody in education, from the principal to the teachers, to the janitors, to the students, is mentally hollering, "Hooray for Friday!" Monday is not too bad, but Fridays are wonderful. Just thinking about that free day on Saturday makes Friday a special day. We used to celebrate Fridays in the one-room school I taught in the early 40s by having a ciphering match or railroad spelling. We had all the classes for the whole day in abbreviated form that morning. After the noon recess was over, we tidied the room, burned the waste paper in the pot-bellied stove, and chose sides for the afternoon's contests. These contests were fun, but deadly serious, on par with a crosstown rival's football or basketball game. On any given day, I had 3 students who were capable of winning, and each had his honor at stake. The captains were the last 2 left standing the previous week. They guessed a number to see who chose first, and the other team played first. This ritual was set in concrete by the time I arrived on the scene. If we were ciphering, mathematics to the uninitiated, we let the smallest children go first. At the first of the year, we let the wee ones see how many marks they could make in a minute. After they learned to make their numbers, they made numbers from 1 to 10, and later numbers 1 to 100. Usually the mark makers would get turned down by an older child who had practiced making marks on the blackboard until he could make 2 marks with 1 stroke of the chalk, on the upstroke as well as the downstroke. The challenger from the other team would ask for any type of problem he wanted. This was a point of strategy, as each of the students knew the other's strong and weak points. The idea was to choose for your weapon an area your opponent was weak in, and ask for that type of problem. The teacher's job was to find the type of problem asked for, give it out slowly enough that the 2 contestants could put it down accurately, but fast enough that one student wouldn't have the problem worked by the time she said go. Some of the children could have the 2 right-hand places of a 6-digit column of numbers added and would have put down the answer the instant the command add was given. The great advantage of ciphering matches was that all the students wanted to learn each type of problem. Introducing a new process was easy for both student and teacher. All the students had been watching their older schoolmates work these types of problems since they had been mark and number makers in the 1st grade. I have never seen railroad spelling played anywhere but Wilson School in Butler County, Kentucky, when I was a teacher there. The students would choose sides the same way they did for the ciphering matches, but the same students were not necessarily chosen first. Of course, the younger children were chosen last, but that never seemed to bother them. They knew they would eventually be the oldest and most proficient students. The captain chosen to go first would spell railroad. The opposing captain would spell day. Number 2 person on side 1 would counter with yesterday. These opening moves were classic, like the opening moves of checkers or chess. The object of the contest was to think of a word and spell it correctly, beginning with the last letter of the word that the opposing team member had just spelled. No word could be repeated. The teacher's job was to write down each word as it was spelled to have proof that the word had been spelled. If a student could not think of a word, or if he misspelled his word, he had to sit down. This continued until everyone on one side had been eliminated. The trick was to spell words that ended in X or Y, to make it hard for one's opponent, as the English language has very few words starting with those letters. Some of the children spent rainy day recess periods memorizing the spelling of all the words in the dictionary beginning with those letters. Ciphering matches and railroad spelling were two successful ploys I used many years ago to make children want to learn. All successful teachers have their own strategies to make learning more enjoyable, or at least less painful. The really successful teachers inspire their students to want to know more than they ask for. I'm convinced that those long ago Friday afternoons, rather than being just entertainment, were worth as much as a whole week's plodding recitations and homework, because the contests taught the students that learning should be voluntary and was advantageous. Hooray for Fridays!